All right, welcome back to another episode of the Big Douglas Show. Every Friday is an Inside the Command Center. We will try to get you a little closer to all the action. For today, my guest is Lynnell Willingham. Lynnell, what's happening, brother?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Well, we'll see. I'm doing
Yeah,
okay. All right, I think is the way to put it. Let's heat check on you. How you doing?
I'm good. I feel like this week has been like one of the more toxic weeks within the fan base in terms of like social media, and everyone's got an explanation as to why such and such happened. And honestly, Doug, full transparency, it's separating the people that know a little something from the ones that are clueless. So I'm actually happy to see this happen the way it is, because Commander's Twitter is a very dangerous place.
It's wild out there for
Yeah,
sure, and it'll change on you in a hurry.
in a in an instant.
The fan base was super pumped through two games. And frankly, those were tough games, right? I mean, I think we agree on that. It took late game heroics, and both
Yep.
of those actually pulled the W out. This team could easily be 0-3. They're not, they're 2-1. So we'll give them the wins that they get. What was it about the Bills game that troubled you the most?
Just the lack of feel, and I get caught up when I do this every time I answer this question. I First of all, let me preface it by saying I have full confidence that through the duration of 17 games, they'll never look the way that they looked last Sunday. And if they do ever again, then like I said before we started, there's got to be some type of major changes. But I was just disappointed in Eric Bieniemy's lack of feel for the game, you know. And I understand the turnovers are bad from Sam, and the offensive line's got to protect a little better. But I think Eric Bieniemy is the guy that, to me, doesn't get a mulligan in any situation. Right? He came here to prove himself worthy of being a head coach, and through the first 3 games of the season, from what we've seen from this offense, I don't think he's deserving of that title at this point. Right? We understand what Washington's bread and butter is, what we think it is as a fan base, right? Everyone wants us to run the football. The one thing that's been troubling to me through the first 3 weeks, Doug, they don't feature anybody offensively, right? It's one
Yeah.
thing to try to be multiple and to try to be diverse and run your offense and let the defense dictate what you do, but you got to have your bread and butter, something that you're going to be able to lean on. And based on all the metrics and the stats, the running game is that, and that's what you should be leaning on. But for whatever reason, they're so lopsided past the run in the first half, and I think that's really hurt Sam in the offense throughout the first 3 weeks, and then it really reared its head on Sunday against Buffalo. I just think for you to go scoreless with the talent that we have offensively for 58 plus minutes is just inexcusable to me, right? And I understand we have a young quarterback, and I understand there's a lot that goes into it, but you got to score, right? Like, there's no way a team is 34 points better than you. You were in that football game for a majority of the time, and you got away from the run. And they did a piece. Ted Nguyen in The Athletic this week did a piece. He was one of the disappointments he had from week 3 was EB getting away from the run. And I think now that it's been put on full blast, and now that everyone nationally and locally is talking about it, guaranteed they come out running the football on Sunday.
That game on Sunday was one of the weirdest that I ever recall in a long time. And I've watched a lot of football. I mean, that game, if you'd have turned that game on at the beginning, if you had just turned it on at the beginning of the fourth quarter, you'd have thought, wow, they're in a dogfight. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is what we were hoping for. Like, let's just stand in here and trade blows with one of the better teams in the league and see what happens. If you'd have turned that game on with 2 minutes left, you'd have thought, wow, they really came out here and got their ass kicked, like all up and down the field. And it was, I guess, a combination of both. Again, it was really odd to put my finger on how it was that you were supposed to pull apart what was good and what was bad out of that game, because it was just so odd. Brian Robinson, to your point, ran the ball 10 times for 70 yards. That's it. 10 times, 70 yards. I don't understand. Give me 7 yards of carry 20 times.
Yeah, I need it.
And even if that number gets down to 5.5 with the 10 extra carries, that is fine. I'll take that all day long. Sam Howell has ran 5 RPO plays on the season. On the season, I know.
That's kind of like the
concept. I get the concept that the modern NFL says you pass to get the lead and then you run the ball to win the game. Okay, I get that's what they say, but I think sometimes EB forgets that ain't Mahomes back there.
Right, and that's the frustrating part about it. So I think only 5 RPO attempts. He's near the bottom in the NFL. He may be 32nd among starting quarterbacks in play action pass attempts. So, like, the numbers are frustrating because, and I go back to EB, and the reason I feel comfortable being open and honest and poignant about how I feel about EB is because I was one of the main ones giving him praise for what he did this summer and the way training camp looked and how different everything was. But it's one thing to come in and establish a culture, which I think he did on the offensive side of the football. Now it's about going out and executing it on a play-by-play basis. And the one thing that every offensive coach and every defensive coach says, you have to put your players in the best position to succeed. I thought he was really open and honest about it yesterday. To an extent, I think he was kind of messing with the media by saying he didn't know that he's been sacked 19 times. Everyone in that building better know his ass has been sacked 19
right.
times because that's a league leader, and the next closest guy is like 13, I think. So to me, that was really my biggest disappointment, man. Just him not having a good feel for the game as it played out, and then just not putting the guys in the best position to succeed. I found this website, Doug, that I'm going to actually send to you too for you to scour over some of these numbers. It's called NFLsavant.com. They do a really good job breaking down. Everything is into how many plays Washington's run out of 3-by-1 sets, how many plays Washington has run from under center. So it's giving you like the breakdown in every aspect possible. And it's like the number one personnel that they're living in right now was this 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 running back. Now, I guess, granted, you can run the ball out of that, but like it doesn't even look like they're coming out and trying to run the football, man. Like the quick game, I'm okay with. And the one thing I also wanted to say, Doug, too, I don't want to just run the ball for the sake of running the football. This offense, and we know this since Ron has gotten here, cannot get themselves out of these 3rd and long situations, or they cannot put themselves in these 3rd and long situations. So running the ball is really just to get yourself into a 3rd and short, but you can get to that through the quick passing game. You can get to that with a screen. You can get to that with RPO like you've been alluding to. So I just kind of puzzled the way the play calling went on Sunday, especially since, like you said, for a good portion of that game, about 46 minutes of it, it's a 2-possession game. So there's no real excuse for you to get away from the run the way you did. So it's something that he's got to fix. And you know this, you've been watching the league for a while. Andy Reid is pass happy. So he comes from Andy. Yes. So I'm not even surprised.
The league's pass happy. There's no doubt.
Yeah, so like he's just got to understand the personnel that he has. And I'm excited for them moving forward because I just think once you have a stinker like that, I think everybody kind of wakes up within the building and goes, you know what? The shit that we're doing isn't working.
It feels like it would be hard to have 2 stinkers like that in a row. And while I know that you kind of maybe flippantly said there's got to be big changes, I don't think that there would be. I think this is what they're riding for the year, and whatever happens is whatever happens. And I think that's probably the right thing to do. I get people that will suggest, hey, if this thing starts going south, you've got to put in Brissett and get some wins because guys are here for the wins. And that's true. You can see what's going on in New Jersey right now. Guys aren't happy with the quarterback play. I don't think we're going to get that to that point with Sam. And before we move on to something else, one last thing on EB for the casuals, I think, to watch the game. You know, it's one thing to design the plays. There are only so many formations to run out of.
Right.
There aren't only so many schemes to use. It's why the last guy isn't here. It's not that his scheme didn't work. He didn't know how to put plays together.
Right.
And I think that's still something that EB and the offense is figuring out right now, which plays work, not only which plays work, but which plays work when, and how do we get back to them and making sure that we get back to them. And they got to, you know, what I said before the Denver game, I said 2 things. I'd like to see more screens and more design blitzes. We got both of those against the Broncos. We got no screens against the Bills. I think I counted 3. Like I don't get that. I understand that you thought maybe that they'd be waiting on them, but if you can't pull off more than 3 screens a game in an offense that loves to run screens, I'm confused.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and it's not like every time they've run a screen this year, it feels like it's hit for positive yards because it's something that they drilled on during the offseason. Like during the first week of training camp, my number one takeaway was like, wow, this is a full-blown West Coast offense. They're getting the ball out of his hands quickly. The pocket's moving, and the screen game is being emphasized, right? Even down to the positional work that they're doing. The receivers are taking extra time. The quarterbacks are working on fadeaway passes because you know how it is when you get a screen, you're inviting pressure and you got to throw it off your back foot sometimes. So they drilled it in every aspect that you possibly could. I think what you alluded to is just about finding that delicate balance of when to run the screen, when to run the fake screen. Like there's so many layers to this offense that I feel like we haven't seen yet. And it's all, to me, going to start when they can get teams to commit to stopping them from running. Right now, when you're guarding Washington, you're kind of just playing. You're going and reacting off of what they're doing. There's not, the one thing that I keep saying, they don't have an identity to me offensively, and they don't have a bread and butter, so to speak, something that they're going to lean on no matter what the defense is doing. So if they can establish that, which is going to be hard to do against Philly, who's really good at stopping the run, if they can establish that, they'll be fine, I think.
Ron's gotten a lot. Where's the roster at for you right now with Ron? Ron's taking a lot of heat for this offensive line, and I'd suggest that for those that say they haven't put enough resources into the offensive line, they spent their only 2 quote unquote big free agency acquisitions this year on offensive linemen. They spent their 3rd and 4th round picks on offensive linemen in this year's draft.
Yeah, granted, one of them can't play, but
neither one of them are going to play, and that's a discussion we can have too. I've had it several times on the show.
I think Ricky could play. It's just,
will he?
They would have to move Cosmi to tackle and let Stromberg play guard in order for him.
Cosmi is obviously a much better guard than tackle.
Right? Exactly. So you can't win with that.
You can't win with that.
Yeah.
And Braden Daniels is at least a year or 2 off. Now, I guess the follow-up question there then is, what does that say about Ron? If those 2 guys, let's say this, if those 2 guys are good players, then what does that say about Ron willing to take guys knowing they're not going to play when he needs guys that can play right now to save his job? Bonehead Ron or Big Guts Ron? I'm not sure which one it is.
Bonehead Ron. And I said it yesterday, Doug. Like, remember earlier, I believe it was like before the preseason started, him and John Keim had a little sit down that they did in like a hotel lobby or something. And Ron was like, yeah, if we go 8-8 this year and I left this team with the franchise quarterback and they go and win the Super Bowl, send me my damn Super Bowl ring. What man with testosterone would ever speak like that? Like that's, and it's like, is he playing games with us as media people? Because your number one objective this year should be trying to win, which is why I've caught a lot of flack for the statement that I made. And I've been saying it all offseason. I'm just now bringing it back to the forefront. It is organizational malpractice to think that you're going to try to develop a young quarterback in year 4 of a 5-year deal. That's just doing things, to me, ass backwards. This is not the time to try to develop a quarterback. Terry McLaurin does not give a damn about Sam's development. John Allen doesn't care about. They've been here losing. They want to win, man. You've made the playoffs once since you've gotten here. You finished over 500 once since you've gotten here. You owe it to the guys on the roster to win as many games as possible. So I'm like, if you can't win games and develop Sam Howell at the same time, then you got to put Jacoby in. But back to what you're saying about the roster building. The roster's good. But the roster's good not all because of Ron. He inherited a good group because I think you already had Terry, you already had Deron, you already had John. So, like, I give him credit for being able to sign those guys to extensions because that means that they believe in the program that he's trying to build moving forward and they buy into it. I've always given him credit for that. He's hit on a couple of guys in the draft. But my big thing when I'm judging someone's ability to roster build, quarterback is the most important position, damn just in the NFL. In pro sports, you cannot move forward. If I'm taking over, if any of us get blessed with the opportunity to run an organization, quarterback is the number one thing we're circling and we're drilling down on that, like, that's got to be fixed. And everyone keeps trying to give him a mulligan about the Dwayne Haskins thing. Like, we got to look at that, like, through the lens that it needs to be looked through. You were brought in here, a coach-centric approach. You had full control and full autonomy over the roster. If you didn't like Dwayne in the offseason, that's on your ass for trying to make something work. And it set your franchise back. Because realistically speaking, if he would have come in and made it known that Dwayne wasn't his guy, we'd have Tua or we'd have Justin Herbert. And I understand you could say it's hindsight, but, like, he just hasn't handled the quarterback position right from day one, literally from day one. So I think in terms of total roster building, I'll give him a B plus. But, like, not having a quarterback is such a big big bugaboo, and like the plan at quarterback has been bad. Like you limped into the playoffs year one, and you follow that up with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like that's the perfect time to go get your young signal caller. You won more games than you were supposed to. The culture is feeling good around the building. You're just getting here. There's a winning taste in the organization's mouth. Go get you a quarterback that can possibly lead you into the promised land and let you be here longer than your first contract. Because right now it looks like he's going to get fired.
It's interesting, Lynnell. At that particular moment in time, you're looking at two different ways to formulate a football team. And when Ron got here, he had already, usually you don't get two shots at the apple anyway, right? So
Right.
the first time around, he went number one overall draft pick, Cam Newton, and they built around Cam. When he takes the Washington job is when Brady goes to Tampa. And you can see this model where if you build this really good football team, you can just insert quarterback X, whatever, and go winning some football games. And the problem for him is it never worked. They went out and tried their damnedest to get several different guys. None of that panned out. Now Fitzpatrick is weird. National folks with Fitzpatrick coming off that playoff appearance had Fitzpatrick taking them all the way to the promised land. There was a lot of hype about that.
It was
never
ludicrous,
sees the
though.
field, and then they never come back. So I don't know what he was supposed to do about it. I guess you could have packaged picks up this year to go up for an Anthony Richardson if that made you happy.
I actually cut off a piece. I used it for one of my overtime shows. He was on NFL Live at the Combine. And they asked him, like, I know you've committed to Sam Howell as being a guy, but if you guys fall in love with someone during this process, are you willing to give up the capital to go get him? And of Ron speak, he goes, yeah, sure, of course. If we love a guy, we're going to go get him. And it's like, dude, my thing is this. I love Sam. I think Sam has the right mental stuff, and he works really hard. That's like the rap that he has around the building. And that's a good reputation to have. But if I'm going to go with a young quarterback, I'm going with the one that already has more physical tools, someone that's already ready to go. Like, say what you want about Anthony Richardson and what he did at Florida. He came in and had instant success his first 2 weeks in the NFL. CJ Stroud, who I always thought was the number one quarterback coming out, he's doing it without 3 of his 5 offensive linemen, and he's got JV wide receivers. So, like, there were guys in this class that you could have hitched your wagon to. I go back to the 2021 offseason, Doug, and we did this for 3 hours yesterday with Chris Russell. It was crazy to do. The Fitzpatrick thing, right? That offseason, Mike Silver put out the piece that Washington had tried really hard for Stafford, but he just ultimately chose that LA was where he wanted to go. They tried really hard for Russell Wilson. They made calls about Aaron Rodgers. With those 3 quarterbacks, right, Doug, you were going to have to give up significant draft capital to get them. Why not give up that same capital to move up from 19 into the top 10 to end up with a quarterback like Justin Fields or Mac Jones? And I understand, it's hindsight and those guys haven't had the best starts to their career. But I always say this about quarterback. You can judge a guy in a certain situation, but that doesn't mean he's going to be that in another. Quarterback is always about fit to me when it comes to the organization, the offense that they're running, and the offensive coaching staff that they have in place. Those guys, or Justin Fields was never going to succeed in Chicago just because of the infrastructure that they have around them. They're just a bad organization. So you never know how any of those young guys work here. So
I've always said, to me, that was Ron's biggest mistake. Whether Justin Fields ends up being a good quarterback in the NFL or not, to me, that was the year. They gave up 1 first-round draft pick to move up to get him. The Bears were right behind us. We could have done that. We took Jamin Davis instead. Christian Darrisaw gets picked at 2 spots behind Jamin Davis. That draft, to me, was where they really blew it. No matter no matter how good Jamin Davis gets, right? He's not going to be better than what if Justin Fields had ended up being a premier quarterback and Darrisaw looks like he's going to be a premier left tackle.
Already one of the best tackles.
Right. You just can't. Jamin Davis could be the best off-ball linebacker in the league. He wouldn't be as valuable as either one of those players. So to me, that's kind of, if we're looking at big mistakes, big whiffs. Sorry, Jamin, but that was the one right there because you really could have set the franchise in a different direction.
110%.
The other really odd thing to me about this whole thing, Lynnell, is that even if Sam is pretty good, let's say he's pretty good, let's say he's average, which would be great around here, and they don't win football games, and the new owners just want or they win some football games, whatever. The new owner wants to go in a different direction. This isn't what he wants to do. What is the chance that a new GM comes in and likes average Hal? Right? Like, I mean, most that does it, when the reset comes, right? And everybody kind of seems to think that there's a reset coming, which is
Yeah.
fine. I can get on board with that. That it's probably likely. But the reset usually goes new GM who gets a new head coach, new GM. All three of them tie their wagon to a new quarterback that they find in the draft. What's the chance that everybody's just going to come in and be happy with Hal? So have you put all this work into Hal for nothing? Just to have said you done it? Because that
That's what I'm
kind of
saying.
feels like what's happening with Ron now, right? We're doing this so that Ron could say, "Hey, I ran the young kid out there and we gave
I
him a
tried.
right."
That's my thing. Like, you're in year 4. Like, and I hate to keep like questioning
They did
manhood.
it
Where's your
backwards.
testosterone? Where's your competitive drive? Like, you should be hell bent on winning football games no matter what. Like, I gave him credit getting outside of his comfort zone, bringing in Eric Bieniemy and giving him full autonomy of the offense. That's something that like people take for granted, man. This is
That
Ron's
takes
football team.
testosterone.
Yeah, this is testosterone-driven business, man. This is Ron's team. So I give him credit for saying, you know what? I'm going to take a step back. EB, you got it. You can lead us offensively. Like that, he deserves credit for that. But as you're alluding to, like, winning should be the number one thing right now. And for you to hit your wagon to a guy with 11 career completions and give him every offseason rep, and then we had a performance like we saw on Sunday, I thought he got every offseason rep so Sunday wouldn't happen. I thought he received every first team rep, so it couldn't be possible to have this type of letdown. I understand he's a young quarterback, but going scoreless for 58 minutes is unacceptable. It just is.
Not with those weapons.
Yeah.
You'd have had to luck into some points. And by the way, I'd have taken the 3 points early in the game.
Yeah, I would have too.
Like 10-3 looks a whole lot different. And for what? You didn't get it. What was the chance you were going to get it? I understand the people that say you go for it in that spot. I just wouldn't have done. I ain't taking the points. That's neither here nor there. What's a better chance that both DNs are here next year or both DNs are gone next year?
That's tough because if you would have asked me this after the Denver game, I say they're both here because they can pay Sam Howell's a young quarterback on a rookie deal. You can afford to pay everybody. I think it seems like they're already like Montez is the one that they've already tried to engage or on talks with. And it seems like between him, Cam Curl, and Chase, Montez would be the franchise tag guy and the guy that they're saying, like, we can't lose regardless. But I think it's just wait and see because if Chase gives you production, then I think he may drive himself out of Washington from a market standpoint because you know how coveted edge rushers are. And you got to think there's an organization out there that feels like Washington just screwed it up with this kid. He's got all-world upside and all-world potential. Why not take a flyer on him? He's healthy. If he's healthy, I think he can. If he's healthy, he may enter. If he's healthy and Montez gets tagged, he probably enters the summer as DN1, like the number one, the most sought-after free agent pass rusher.
If he keeps playing like he did in Denver.
Yeah. And how do you think he played against Buffalo? Because I think I think they all got caught loafing at times.
They did. I think, and I could be way off on this, but I think Chase has I think sometimes after a good game like he had in Denver, the next game he's too pumped on himself and gets kind of away from like what we saw in Denver is precisely what they've been asking him to do, right? Like stay in your rush lanes.
Yep.
You saw against Buffalo. I mean, he hit Josh Allen with the whoop-de-whoop jump step. I mean, I don't even know what was happening. And then for Ron to say that he thinks Josh Allen got in their head a little bit, like
you can't. They got to take the mic away from a microphone.
I mean, it's incredible. Don't say that. I'm sure the guys in the locker room really appreciated that, that comment. But yeah, I mean, I think sometimes he thinks too much and gets too worried about just not being fast. You're fast. That's the guy at the combine when they're running 40s, right? He always looks at him and says, "You're fast. Just be fast. Go be fast." Like you don't have to think about being fast. You are fast. Go be fast. And I think that with Chase Young, sometimes people have to remind him, like, you're an animal. Just go be an animal. Just go do what you do, man. And that's all we need from you. We don't need anything extra. Just go be you. That's good enough. More than
I
good
think
enough.
he may have gotten caught up in like everyone's talking about his pass rush bag. You saw it against Denver. You don't have to have a plethora of moves when you can convert speed to power the way he
That's
does.
right.
He's
That's
strong as a damn ox. If he gets underneath the tackle's pads, it's over. He has the physical strength to just drive them into the lap of the quarterback. And you saw that on a couple of different occasions. I thought the Buffalo game, he came out really hot. And then the one thing that I didn't like, and no one said this because I guess maybe no one cared. The offense is struggling so bad. That's where all our attention is going to. He and Montez Sweat have got to have a better rush plan when they're getting chipped. Because when
right.
Buffalo started chipping him, he was completely out of the play. Now, I don't know if this is him going, well, they're committing two guys to me, so someone else has got a one-on-one, so I don't have to go as hard. But it was really disheartening to see, like, once Buffalo said, you know what, we're committing a tight end to you along with the tackle, it's like you don't have to let the tight end touch you. Like there's no rule saying you got to let him chip you. It kind of felt like they got out of their rush plan and they were too worried about the chip blocker, and it kind of took them out of the game. And you saw Buffalo gets a lot of credit for how they schemed up their protections. A lot of the times they're just chipping, and the chip completely takes the edge rusher out of the play for whatever reason.
Well, and the two defenses were basically set up the same way. They've been designed by the same
Yep.
person. And you saw they were able to get home with 4, and we couldn't get there with 5. I mean, even the design blitzes weren't
Yeah.
working at all, and it didn't feel like, for as good as they've been at it changing up the game plan, it didn't feel like they got there nearly as fast in the Buffalo game as maybe they did in the first 2 games. Have you been surprised? I've been a little surprised. Have you been surprised? All preseason, I talked to people about who was going to play opposite of Emmanuel Forbes. I just assumed Emmanuel Forbes be number 1 outside corner, and then it'd be between St. Juice and Kendall Fuller to figure it out. Not been that way at all. They've kept the 2 vets on the outside, and then when they get into nickel, they're moving St. Juice inside and putting Forbes outside. Now, I like St. Juice better outside. He's actually been pretty good in the nickel this year, better than I thought he'd be compared to some of the years in the past. Have you been surprised? I guess this is kind of what they do. They make you earn it, and I think I like that, but I've still been surprised that St. Juice is out snapping the first round draft pick.
You know what I think it has a lot to do with? And they can say they're comfortable and he's a willing tackler. The reason they're not going to ever play Forbes in the slot is because in this defense, you have so much more run fit.
Oh, I don't want him in the slot. I'm just surprised
he
that he hasn't been the starter outside.
Yeah, and even with that, I think basically what it's coming down to from a numbers standpoint, I guess sometimes they're choosing to play Percy Butler over Emmanuel Forbes because they're rolling with 3 safeties when they're playing just the 2 outside corners. Right. So basically it's coming down to that. Forbes has been interesting to me this season. Like it's been up and down. What you expect out of a rookie DB. It's a hard position to come transition into from college. But he's just got to play with more confidence. And Ron talked about him using his technique. Like, yeah, dude, I was really disappointed in the scramble drill play that Josh Allen and Diggs had because it's like Forbes, like that's your play, dude. You're in trail technique. You got good vision on the quarterback. Like, just look. It's not like Diggs is doing anything spectacular. You're in scramble drill, man. You got to just do a better job keeping your hand on the hip and shadowing the guy. He's just got to do a better job with his technique. And then the run fit stuff. I don't think he's playing the run well right now at all. Like, and I'm not trying to be critical or mean about it, but it's a mindset that you have to have. And like with this defense that is so gap centric, one guy not being in this gap can completely blow the defensive scheme. And you saw that a couple of times. I don't know how much you saw it against Buffalo, but against Denver at times, there was a couple of times where he misses his run fit and Javonte Williams is able to get on the edge. So he's got to just be better in that aspect of his game. I think he'll end up being a good player, but it's so hard with 3 games in and you use your 2 richest draft picks on 2 DBs that aren't even dominating the snap count and your offensive line is kind of struggling right now. You need some better pieces. So like, I feel bad for him because he was always going to have to go above and beyond to be worth the pick because I don't think anyone wanted corner right there.
It'll be interesting because they're already comparing him to Gonzalez, who got picked 1 pick later. To me, the comparisons will be about Martin and I feel bad. It looks like Brian Branch may be done for the year after last night.
Yeah.
But to me, that was always the bigger conversation. I liked Brian Branch better than I did Quan Martin if we're talking about strictly playing in the slot. Do we not give enough credit to the fact that if you take Charles Leno and Kendall Fuller off the team, they average like 23 years old. I mean, it's got to be like take those two guys off. It's the third youngest team in the league. Do we not pay enough attention to that when we're critiquing the team?
I don't think it should be like emphasized because all the guys that are playing right now have played, right? They're young in terms of their age, but in terms of experience,
yes,
there's not really any new starters out there. Like these are all guys that have been in the fire before. I know you got your young pups on offense with the running back, receiver, tight end, talking about Cole, B-Rob, and Jahan. But outside of that, like everyone's a vet, I feel like, right? Jamin on defense is kind of your young pup, so to speak. But like St. Juice has been playing for 3 seasons. Like everyone on defense has been in that spot, which is why I'm like, they had to get off to a bet. There's no reason Buffalo should have happened. This is, you can say they're young all you want.
And again, how many points had they given up going into the fourth quarter? It's really odd. And I don't want to say people gave up, but it didn't look like there was a whole lot of hustle at the end of that fourth quarter.
And that was the most disappointing thing
because they were in that thing.
Yeah.
What's the key to winning on Sunday, Lynnell?
Don't beat yourselves. I mean, EB said it yesterday. Like it's much harder to beat another team when you're playing the other team and playing yourself. And I don't think he's like giving coach speak with that. You can't turn the ball over 4 times. Like that's, or was it 5 times? It's 5 times. That's inexcusable. I keep saying 4 because he threw 4 picks. I forget about the Gibson fumble. But that just can't happen, especially the way that this roster is constructed and the way that your team is set up. You're trying to be – it's supposed to be a low-scoring game against every team you play against. You should be okay winning 23-20. It should be all about your offense not making mistakes, and then your defense makes a play in the fourth quarter or the second half to, like, set you apart. The key is going to be on the defense, though. I think they always have to go into each week taking the onus of we're going to have to win this game for us because we know offensively we're limited. So the one thing that I think works in Washington's favor, I've watched every snap of the Philadelphia Eagles season to this point. Jalen Hurts and their passing offense looks completely different. Yeah. And the one reason I give us a real puncher's chance on Sunday, they haven't seen a front that is as big and physical and as nasty as Washington's is. They got Minnesota's soft front on Thursday night that wasn't very good. I didn't make much of their win against the New England Patriots because offensively they were challenged and couldn't do much. So I think if Washington can control the line of scrimmage, which is so like coach speak cliche, they'll have a shot. I think you play Philly 8 men in the box. You leave your corners on an island and you let them go make plays, man. Jalen Hurts has got to prove he could beat you from within the pocket. One thing that Tampa did that really bothered him, they were heating his ass up. You send pressure on Jalen Hurts and make him have to move off of his spot, I think they can have a really good shot. I'm like anti-Jalen Hurts, and like it's so crazy, Doug. I could give full transparency. I feel like I'm not allowed to hate on him because he's a black quarterback, and we want all our black quarterbacks to be good. But the man can't throw the damn ball. They paid him $200 million to be a leader and hand it off. Because outside of that, through the first 3 weeks, he has not been impressive, which is why I think if Washington doesn't shoot themselves in the foot offensively, they have a real shot because Philly's pass defense is suspect. And if Taylor Heineke was able to light up their secondary last year, then I think Sam Howell should be able to as well.
What realistically do you think the score looks like on Sunday?
23-19.
Good guys?
Bad guys. Bad guys.
I usually, when we do these preseason previews and we go through the schedule, which is I don't know why we do that other than just to fill time, but I always just give the division games. I'll just split them, give each one to the home. But I think I've been changed. I think maybe they're going to go into Philly and do it this week. I still think they'll split, but I think they know how to do it. They did it last year.
Right.
And I think coming off a turn, and you know what? I think this team plays better on the road too. This one of those teams I think plays better on the road. Even though the fans have showed up, I think they play better on the road. So we'll see. Tough game.
Yeah.
Tough game. What's tell the folks what you got. You're all over the place on game day. Tell us where to find you, what you got, what you're doing.
You can find me on game days on the Team 980 and 106.7 The Fan. It kind of splits as the season goes and baseball ends, so programming rights and all that stuff. But the post game show normally starts on the Team 980, and then once whatever is done on 106 happens, we go to 106. So game day coverage all day, starting at like 10 o'clock on both of the stations, 106 and 980.
And they kind of got you in the swing tackle role during the week, right?
Mm-hmm. I like the way you use that. I'm the swing tackle. Yeah, I'm pretty much anywhere where someone's not. If someone's out, I'm probably filling in for them. But yeah, I've been doing every Wednesday and Thursday with Chris Russell on the Team 980, and that has been explosive radio. I'll say that.
Yeah. Well, tell the Rooster I said what's up, and be safe out there, and always appreciate you. Keep grinding, man.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you, Doug.
All right.